They say imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, but changing your voice to sound like someone else's isn't easy for anyone. Changing your voice at all isn't natural, unless of course you're the most famous voice in cartoon history. This is All Request History. If you've ever wondered about the history of, well, anything, you're in the right place. Send us your request in the comments, and if chosen, we'll produce, record, and post your history request. Thanks this time to Drew K. of Derby, Connecticut for requesting the history of Mel Blanc. He's called the Man of 1,000 Voices, and he's most known for his characterization of Bugs Bunny, a wise-cracking smart aleck from Brooklyn. The man himself, however, was born Melvin Jerome Blanc in San Francisco, California in 1908. His mother said he started doing several voices by the age of 10. He would entertain, amuse, and even purposely annoy his parents, friends, and teachers. At the age of 16, he annoyed his high school teacher, Mrs. Washburn, so much that she told him, "You'll never amount to anything. You're just like your name, a blank." Remember, this was 1924. Things were different at schools. At that time, his name was spelled Blank, B-L-A-N-K. After that class, however, he legally had his name changed to Mel Blanc, B-L-A-N-C. Keeping his voices to use in his free time, he graduated high school in 1927 and pursued his real passion, music. He played the tuba and conducted when he could in any orchestra that would take him. He was a music prodigy and by the age of 22 became the youngest conductor in the country when hired to be the head conductor of the Oregon Orpheum Theater Orchestra. During this time, the young, ambitious entertainer also worked in vaudeville theater and worked on radio shows at Portland's KGW. Now only aged 24, he left the conductor gig and he moved to LA to work at radio station KOIN. During his time in LA, he met Estelle Rosenbaum at a dance in Ocean Park Ballroom in Santa Monica. They dated, fell in love, and in less than 1 year, he became her husband. A match made in heaven? Well, yes. Estelle was his one and only, and they remained married for life, 56 years. After being married, the couple moved back to Portland and hosted their own radio show on KEX called Cobweb and Nuts. In 1935, back to LA, this time Mel was asked to work for the Jack Benny radio show at KFWB. He also worked providing a few voices for radio shows like Burns and Allen and Abbott and Costello. It was during the work with Jack Benny that might have been his big break. The sound man was a vital part of any radio show in the 30s, but while Mr. Benny was directed to start his car, the sound man's amplifier went out. Mel quickly stepped up to the microphone and perfectly simulated the sound of a car sputtering to a start. After that segment, Mr. Benny turned to Mel and said, "You are my new car sound." He was happy doing radio shows, but what Mel really wanted to do was voices for Warner Brothers, who were producing this new TV concept of animated shorts. Yep, they called them Looney Tunes. He tried to get an audition with them, but he was turned down. The ambitious actor didn't like to take no for an answer, and he showed up and tried to audition every 2 weeks for over a year. The man who was in charge of hiring voice actors who kept turning him down, well, he died. His predecessor not only hired Mel the following week, but went on to ask him why he hadn't auditioned sooner. Whether or not his 1,000 voices were already in him or he developed them over the years, this job would be the beginning of what would become the most famous cartoon voice in history. Mel Blanc worked for Warner Brothers from 1937 to 1969. Think about it, do you know anybody that's been at the same job for 32 years? He also worked on TV commercials, Hollywood movies, and he also had his own radio show, The Mel Blanc Show, from 1946 to 47. Now, a tip of the cap can be given to Mel Blanc by most every voice actor professional ever for getting the voice actor industry respect. In 1944, when his contract was being renewed, he asked for a raise. Now, after being denied, he insisted on compromise. At a time when voice actors got their name in ending credits, if at all, Mel insisted on getting opening credits standalone for at least 5 seconds and worded specifically, voice characterizations, Mel Blanc. According to Britannica, In his 50 years in show business, Mel Blanc provided voices for some 3,000 cartoons produced by various studios. Mel's mother, Ava, said that Sylvester's voice was the closest to his real voice, but when asked, Mel said his favorite character he's ever done was his beloved Bugs Bunny. He was asked about the rumor that he was allergic to carrots. He said that they're not his favorite food, but he's also not allergic to them, and yes, he did chew them up while voicing the famous line, "What's up, Doc?" Speaking of "What's up, Doc?", in 1961, Mel was in a terrible head-on car crash that put him in a coma. His family, obviously devastated, waited for weeks for him to wake up. His son, Noel, tells the story. After watching an episode of Looney Tunes, Dr. Lewis Conway got an idea and came to Mel's bedside and said, "How are you feeling, Bugs Bunny?" Waking up immediately, he replied, "Just fine, Doc. How are you?" He returned home after his 2-month stay in the hospital, but still had to recover for a long while. His son, Noel, filled in and ghosted some of his voices for Warner Brothers, but Hanna-Barbera said that they could not have anyone but Mel do the distinctive voice of Barney Rubble, so they provided him a portable sound recording studio so Mel could do the scripts from his home hospital bed. In 1983, Mel happened to be watching an episode of the game show Press Your Luck. A contestant answered a trivia question that it was Sylvester that used the line "suffer and succotash." The show buzzed it as wrong and gave the answer as Daffy Duck. No. The stunned Mel Blanc called the TV station to correct them. However, after getting the show's producer on the line, he didn't get to speak to the mild-mannered Mel Blanc. Instead, he was stunned to hear about the show's error from Sylvester himself. Not many people know that Mel is also a Billboard charting recording artist. Yep, he peaked at number 6 as Speedy Gonzales in the Pat Boone hit of the same name. Another of his pals voiced a track on a record, the Woody Woodpecker Polka by the Starlighters in 1951. Only a few weeks before his passing in July 1989, top executives from Warner Brothers asked him if there was anything he wanted as a thank you for his body of work. They said, "Anything, you just name it." He asked for and received something he'd always longed for, a classic 1958 Ford Edsel. Wonder what high school teacher Mrs. Washburn would think now. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a classic Ford Edsel, and a lifetime of recorded classic and daring characters. Mel chose the perfect legacy for himself. The epitaph he requested put on his gravestone. That's all, folks. Thanks for checking in. Are you curious? Leave your request in the comments, then subscribe here so you'll know when you're on All Request History.